is, without question, one of the most dangerous tools evolution has ever handed out. The moment something figures out how to leave the ground, it gains access to prey nothing else can reach, escape routes nothing else can follow, and an entire dimension of the battlefield that ground-based predators simply cannot compete in. And across the last 320 million years or so, a whole cast of very different animals have taken their turn ruling the skies. So I wanted to know, period by period, who would have been the single deadliest thing you could look up and see circling above you. Let's take off, starting in the Carboniferous, the first period where the sky had anything worth fearing at all. 00:00:45. Before this point, the air was empty, nothing had evolved true flight yet, but the Carboniferous, with its oxygen-rich atmosphere and sprawling coal forests, changed that fast, giving rise to the first true flying predators, giant griffin flies. And the biggest and nastiest of them all was Meganeuropsis, an insect with a wingspan of around 71 centimeters or 28 inches, making it comfortably the largest flying insect to have ever existed. Despite looking like an oversized dragonfly, Meganeuropsis was a fully dedicated aerial predator, snatching smaller insects and even early amphibians directly out of the air with spiked, grasping legs, before shredding them apart with powerful mandibles mid-flight. And it likely got away with this gigantism thanks to that unusually oxygen-rich Carboniferous air, which allowed insects to grow to sizes that would be physically impossible for them today. 00:01:35. Moving into the Permian, griffin flies were still around, but nothing new and more dominant emerged to challenge them, so the skies stayed relatively similar, just smaller in scale as oxygen levels began to drop. The real shakeup wouldn't come until much, much later, because after the Great Dying wiped out over 90% of species at the end of the Permian, true vertebrate flight still hadn't evolved, and it wouldn't for tens of millions of years more. So we're going to fast forward through the early Triassic, past a sky still ruled by insects, and land somewhere far more exciting, the point where vertebrates finally took to the air. By the late Triassic, roughly 210 million years ago, the first true flying vertebrates appeared, the pterosaurs, and while early forms were small, one genus quickly distinguished itself as a genuine aerial predator, Eudimorphodon. Found in what's now Italy, Eudimorphodon had a wingspan of only around 1 meter, or 3.3 feet, making it modest by later pterosaur standards, but it came packed with a mouth absolutely bristling, with over 100 sharp, multi-cusped teeth, built for a diet heavy in fish, snatched right off the surface of coastal waters mid-flight. It wasn't the biggest thing in the sky, but it didn't need to be. It was simply the only true vertebrate predator up there at all, giving it total, uncontested reign of the air. Into the Jurassic, pterosaurs diversified rapidly, and by the late Jurassic, one genus had scaled up dramatically, Rhamphorhynchus. With a wingspan reaching around 1.8 meters, or 6 feet, and long, needle-like teeth angled forward to interlock like a fish trap when its jaws snapped shut, Rhamphorhynchus specialized in skimming just above the water's surface, snatching fish and small squid before most prey even registered a threat. And while it wasn't the largest pterosaur of its era, its long, stiffened tail, capped with a diamond-shaped rudder, made it an exceptionally agile and fast hunter, likely giving it the edge over slower, bulkier competitors sharing the same lagoons and coastlines. Then came the Cretaceous, and this is where flying predators stopped being merely dangerous and started becoming absolutely terrifying, because pterosaurs reached sizes that still seem almost impossible today. And the undisputed king of the Cretaceous skies, and quite possibly the deadliest flying predator to have ever existed, is Quetzalcoatlus. Living in what's now Texas around 68 million years ago, Quetzalcoatlus had a wingspan estimated at 10 to 11 meters, or 33 to 36 feet, roughly the size of a small fighter jet, and stood as tall as a giraffe while on the ground. Weighing possibly 250 kilograms, or over 550 pounds, it's genuinely one of the largest flying animals to have ever existed. And current evidence suggests it wasn't just a scavenger. It actively stalked terrestrial prey, using its long, spear-like beak to snatch up small dinosaurs, lizards, and mammals in a manner disturbingly similar to how a modern stork or heron hunts, just at a scale that would make you question ever walking outside again. And Quetzalcoatlus wasn't alone up there either, because sharing those same late Cretaceous skies was Hatzegopteryx, prowling what's now Romania. With a wingspan slightly smaller at around 10 to 12 meters, but a proportionally massive skull built more like a battering ram than a delicate beak, Hatzegopteryx is thought to have been an even more aggressive predator, likely capable of taking down prey as large as small dinosaurs on the ground, using raw bite force rather than finesse. So really, across the entire late Cretaceous, if something that big was casting a shadow over you, running was probably your only option, and even that likely wouldn't have been enough. Then, 66 million years ago, the asteroid hit, and the pterosaurs, every single one of them, vanished completely, along with the non-avian dinosaurs they'd shared the skies with. And in the empty air that followed, during the Paleogene, an entirely different lineage rushed in to fill the vacancy: giant, flightless, adjacent, and soaring birds. And the deadliest of the early bunch was Gastornis, a massive flightless bird standing around 2 meters, or 6.5 feet, tall, that for decades was assumed to be a fearsome apex predator preying on early mammals with its enormous hooked beak. More recent evidence actually suggests it may have been herbivorous, so the true aerial throne of the early Paleogene instead likely belonged to Diatryma's smaller, genuinely predatory cousins, and soon after a very different kind of hunter, a true flyer once again. Because by the late Eocene and into the Oligocene, roughly 25 to 30 million years ago, one of the largest flying birds ever to exist took to the skies, Pelagornis. With a wingspan reaching an astonishing 6 meters, or 20 feet, rivaling small aircraft, Pelagornis patrolled ancient oceans on wings that could carry it for thousands of miles without landing, and it hunted using something no bird alive today has: bony, tooth-like projections lining its beak, perfectly built for snagging slippery fish and squid straight out of the water mid-flight. It's a genuinely bizarre design, a bird that essentially reinvented teeth from scratch, tens of millions of years after birds had lost them entirely. Rolling into the Neogene, mammals and birds had both diversified enormously, and the skies found a new, genuinely fearsome ruler, Argentavis. Living in what's now Argentina around 6 million years ago, Argentavis holds the title of largest flying bird ever known, with a wingspan of up to 7 meters or 23 feet, and a weight possibly exceeding 70 kilograms or 155 pounds. Too heavy for sustained flapping flight, it likely relied on thermals and updrafts to stay airborne for hours, and while long assumed to be purely a scavenger, its powerful hooked beak suggests it was just as capable of actively hunting small to medium-sized prey directly off the ground, swooping down with enough force to genuinely kill on impact. Which brings us into the modern world. And while nothing alive today comes remotely close to the scale of Quetzalcoatlus or Argentavis, the sky is still very much ruled by a genuine apex predator, the golden eagle and its close relatives. With a wingspan of up to 2.3 meters or 7.5 feet, powerful enough talons to exert a crushing force exceeding 400 pounds per square inch, and dive speeds that can top 240 kilometers per hour or 150 miles per hour. Golden eagles are capable of taking down prey as large as young deer and mountain goats, dragging animals many times their own body weight straight off cliff faces. So while the scale has shrunk dramatically since the Cretaceous, the underlying formula, speed, precision, and overwhelming striking force from above, clearly hasn't lost a step. And honestly, that consistency might be the most interesting part of this whole story, because across 320 million years, 4 completely unrelated lineages, insects, pterosaurs, giant flightless adjacent birds, and true birds, have each taken their turn ruling the sky, and every single one converged on the exact same solution: height, speed, and surprise. Out of everything we covered today, which one do you think would come out on top in a straight aerial dogfight? My money's on Hatzegopteryx purely on brute force, but let me know your pick in the comments, and if you enjoyed this one, you know what to do.